Atlantic City, New Jersey, August 9th, 1945. The 500 Club, the hottest nightclub on the East Coast, mob-owned, illegal gambling in the back, celebrities in the front, money flowing like water. And tonight, they had the biggest booking in their history. Frank Sinatra, fresh off his triumph in Hollywood. The Voice, the heartthrob who made teenage girls faint, sold out. 3 nights, $15,000 total, a fortune in 1945. Frank arrived at 6 p.m. for soundcheck, walked into the club, and stopped cold. He saw the seating arrangement. Main floor, white patrons, best tables, close to the stage. Balcony, black patrons. Upper level, far from the stage. Separate entrance, separate bathrooms. Segregation. The owner, Paul "Skinny" D'Amato, approached. "Frank, welcome to the 500 Club. Everything's ready. Sold-out crowd tonight." Frank didn't smile. "What's with the seating?" "What do you mean?" "The balcony." "Why are colored people up there?" Skinny shrugged. "That's how we do it. That's the law. New Jersey segregation laws. We don't have a choice." Frank looked at the balcony, then back at Skinny. "Then, I'm not performing." What happened over the next 3 hours didn't just cancel a show. It forced one of the most powerful venues in America to integrate and set a precedent that would echo through the civil rights movement. This is the story they tried to bury. August 1945. World War II had just ended. American soldiers were coming home, including black soldiers, men who'd fought for freedom abroad, but came home to segregation, separate water fountains, separate schools, separate sections in restaurants, buses, theaters. Frank Sinatra hated it. He'd grown up in Hoboken, New Jersey, mixed neighborhood, Italian, Irish, black, Jewish. His mother, Dolly, had taught him one lesson above all others. People are people. Color doesn't matter. Character does. Frank believed it. In Hollywood, Frank had become friends with Lena Horne, Billie Holiday, Count Basie, Duke Ellington. Black artists, legends, and he saw how they were treated. Couldn't stay in the same hotels as him. Couldn't eat in the same restaurants. Had to use service entrances. It infuriated him. In 1945, Frank had made a short film called The House I Live In. 10 minutes. Frank talking to kids about racism, about tolerance, about treating everyone equally. It won an honorary Academy Award. But that was film. This was real life. And Frank was about to make a decision that would cost him $15,000. 6 p.m. August 9th, 1945. The 500 Club. Frank and Skinny D'Amato stood in the middle of the empty club. "What do you mean you're not performing?" "I mean exactly that. If this club is segregated, I'm not singing." Skinny's face darkened. "Frank, we sold out. 3 nights. People paid good money. You can't just—" "I can, and I am. This is New Jersey law. We're following the law." "Then the law is wrong." Skinny stepped closer. "Frank, do you know who owns this club?" "I don't care. You should care. These are serious people. You break a contract with them, there are consequences." Frank's voice was calm, but steel underneath. "Let me make this very clear. I don't perform in segregated venues, period. Either you integrate this club tonight, or I walk. That's impossible. We can't change the entire seating arrangement in 3 hours." "Then I'm leaving." Frank turned toward the door. Skinny grabbed his arm. "Frank, wait. Let's talk about this." Frank stopped. "There's nothing to talk about. Either everyone sits together, or I don't sing." "Do you know how much money you'll lose? $15,000? Plus, we'll sue you for breach of contract. That could be another $50,000 in damages." Frank looked at him. "Sue me." "What?" "You heard me. Sue me. Take me to court. I'll tell every newspaper in America why I refuse to perform. I'll tell them about your segregated seating, about how you force black patrons to sit in the balcony like second-class citizens. Let's see how that plays out for you. Skinny's jaw clenched. You're making a big mistake. No, you made the mistake when you thought I'd be okay with this. Frank walked out. 6:30 p.m. Skinny Diamato was panicking. Sold-out crowd arriving in 2 hours. No performer. He made calls. First to his partners, the men who really owned the 500 Club. We have a problem. Sinatra walked. What? Why? He's refusing to perform unless we integrate. Silence. He's serious? Dead serious. He said he'll go to the press. Tell them about the segregation. That's bad for business. I know. How much would it cost us if he goes public? More than $15,000. Then fix it. How? I don't care how. But Frank Sinatra performing at a segregated club becoming a national story? That can't happen. Integrate the damn club. Meanwhile, Frank was back at his hotel. His manager, Hank Santacola, burst into his room. Frank, what the hell are you doing? What I should do. You just walked out on a $15,000 contract. They're going to sue you. Let them. Frank, this is your career. You can't just... Hank, I'm not singing in a segregated club. I don't care how much money it costs me. Why? Why does this matter so much? Frank stood up. Because yesterday, I read about a black soldier who came home from the war. Purple Heart. Fought the Nazis, saved American lives. And when he got back to Alabama, he couldn't vote, couldn't eat at a diner, got beaten up for trying to use the white water fountain. That man risked his life for this country. And we treat him like he's less than human. That's why this matters. Hank was quiet. What if they don't integrate? What if they sue? Then I lose money. But I keep my integrity. 7:15 p.m. Frank's hotel phone rang. Mr. Sinatra, this is Paul D'Amato. I'd like to talk. I'm listening. We're willing to integrate, tonight, for your shows. Permanently, not just for my shows. What? I'm not doing this so you can go back to segregation after I leave. Permanent integration, starting tonight. Continuing forever. Silence. That's a big ask, Frank. That's my condition. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why do you care so much? You're white. You're Italian. This doesn't affect you. Frank's voice was hard. It affects everyone. Every time we allow discrimination, we're saying it's okay. We're saying some people matter less. And I don't believe that. So yeah, I care. And I'm not performing unless you integrate. Permanently. Long pause. Okay. Okay, what? Permanent integration. Starting tonight. Black patrons can sit anywhere, same as white patrons. Same entrance, same entrance. Same bathrooms, same bathrooms. Same service, same service. Frank took a breath. I'll be there at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock p.m. The 500 Club, Frank walked in. The seating had changed. No more segregated balcony, black patrons sitting at main floor tables, mixed with white patrons. Some white customers looked uncomfortable. A few complained to management. We didn't pay to sit next to... Skinny cut them off. Then leave. No refunds. Most stayed. Frank walked onto the stage, looked out at the audience. Mixed, integrated, historic. He smiled. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here tonight. Applause. I want to say something before I start singing. This is the first time the 500 Club has had fully integrated seating. Black patrons and white patrons sitting together, sharing the same space, the same experience. Some applause, some murmurs. Some of you might be uncomfortable with that. If you are, you're welcome to leave. But this is the way it should be. This is the America we fought for. And this is the America we're going to build. Together. Louder applause now. Frank started singing. "The House I Live In," a song about tolerance, about equality, about America as it should be. When he finished, the entire room stood. Black patrons, white patrons, together, applauding, not just for the music, for the moment. August 10th, 1945. The story hit the newspapers. Sinatra integrates Atlantic City Club. Frank Sinatra refuses to perform in segregated venue. The response was split. Northern newspapers, positive. Sinatra takes stand against segregation. Southern newspapers, negative. Sinatra pushes race-mixing agenda. Frank received hate mail, hundreds of letters. "You're a race traitor. You're destroying America. Stick to singing, leave politics alone." But he also received support from black newspapers, the Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier. Sinatra shows true courage. Finally, a white star who stands for justice. From civil rights organizations, the NAACP sent a letter. "Mr. Sinatra, your actions at the 500 Club represent more than one integrated show. They represent a principle, that segregation is wrong, and that those with platforms should use them for justice. Thank you." Frank kept every supportive letter, threw away the hate mail. After the 500 Club incident, something changed. Other venues started asking themselves, if Frank Sinatra won't perform for us unless we integrate, what does that mean for booking other major stars? In 1946, the Copacabana in New York integrated its seating. In 1947, the Latin Quarter in Boston followed. In 1948, several Las Vegas casinos began discussions about integration. Frank had a policy. Before accepting any booking, his manager asked one question: "Is your venue integrated?" If no, Frank declined. No matter how much money they offered, other artists started following his lead. Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald. By 1950, most major entertainment venues in the North had integrated. Not because of laws, because stars refused to perform otherwise. Frank never claimed credit. When asked about it in interviews, he'd say, "I just did what any decent person would do. The real heroes are the people fighting for civil rights every day. I just sang some songs." But there were consequences. Frank's stand cost him. In 1946, he was banned from performing in several southern states. Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. Venues refused to book him. Sinatra is too controversial. He lost an estimated $100,000 in bookings, a massive amount in 1940s money. In 1947, a Southern radio network dropped his show. Our listeners don't appreciate his political views. More lost revenue. In 1948, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover opened a file on Frank. Communist sympathies, race-mixing advocacy, possible subversive. Frank was followed, phones tapped, investigated. Not because he'd done anything illegal, because he'd stood for integration. And in 1945 America, that was seen as radical, dangerous, un-American. Frank didn't care. "They can investigate me all they want. I'm not changing." The March on Washington. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. Frank Sinatra was there, not on stage, in the crowd, just supporting. After the march, a young civil rights worker approached him. "Mr. Sinatra?" "Yeah." "I want to thank you for what you did back in 1945 at the 500 Club. My father was there that night, in the audience. He was one of the black patrons who got to sit on the main floor for the first time. He told me that night changed his life, because it showed him that not all white people were against him, that some were willing to risk something for equality." Frank was quiet. "What's your father's name?" "James Williams." "Is he here today?" "No, he passed away last year. But before he died, he told me to find you if I ever could, to tell you thank you, for seeing him as equal, for treating him with dignity, for using your platform for justice. Frank's eyes got wet. Tell your father. Tell him he's welcome. And tell him I'm sorry I didn't do more. You did plenty, Mr. Sinatra. You did plenty. Frank was being interviewed by Mike Wallace for 60 minutes. You took a stand against segregation very early, 1945, long before it was popular. Why? Frank thought about it. Because it was wrong. Simple as that. Segregation was wrong. And if I had a platform, if I had influence, and I didn't use it to fight something that was clearly wrong, then what was the point of having that platform? But it cost you money. It cost you bookings. The FBI investigated you. Was it worth it? Absolutely. I lost some money. So what? I made plenty. But those black patrons who got to sit on the main floor for the first time, that mattered. That venue being forced to integrate permanently, that mattered. And if I played even a small role in that, then yeah, it was worth every penny. Do you think you changed anything? I don't know. I hope so. But the real change came from the people who fought every day. The activists, the protesters, the people who risked their lives. I just sang songs and refused to sing in certain places. That's not heroic. That's just basic human decency. Some people called you a communist, a race traitor. How did you handle that? Frank smiled. I didn't. I just kept doing what I thought was right. And I figured if standing for equality made me a communist in their eyes, then their eyes were the problem, not me. 3 years before Frank died, a historian was researching early civil rights activism in entertainment. She interviewed Paul "Skinny" D'Amato, now in his 80s. Is it true Frank Sinatra refused to perform at the 500 Club unless you integrated? Skinny nodded. True. What was that like? Terrifying. We had a sold-out show. Frank walked. We were panicking. But more than that, we were wrong. And Frank made us face it. Did you resent him for it? At first, yeah. But looking back, he did us a favor, forced us to do the right thing. After that night, the 500 Club stayed integrated. And you know what? Business got better. We attracted a wider audience. More talent wanted to play there. Because we'd taken a stand. Because of Frank. Did you ever thank him? Skinny smiled. Once, 1970, Frank was back in Atlantic City. I saw him after a show, told him, you were right. About the integration, about everything. He said, I know. That was it. Classic Frank. Frank Sinatra refused to perform at a segregated venue. They threatened to sue. He said, sue me. He lost $15,000. He was investigated by the FBI. He was banned from southern states. But he didn't back down. And in refusing to perform, he forced change. One venue integrated, then another, then another. By 1950, most major entertainment venues in the North had integrated. Not because of laws, because stars like Frank Sinatra made integration a condition of performance. That's not charity. That's activism. That's using your platform for justice, even when it costs you. When Frank Sinatra died in 1998, the NAACP released a statement. Frank Sinatra was more than an entertainer. He was an early ally in the fight for civil rights. In 1945, when segregation was the law in much of America, Frank refused to perform in segregated venues. He used his platform, his influence, and his voice for justice. Long before it was popular, long before it was safe. We honor his memory, and we thank him for standing with us. Quincy Jones, who knew Frank for decades, said, Frank didn't march, he didn't protest, but he did something just as important. He refused to participate in segregation, and when you're Frank Sinatra, that refusal matters. It forces change. Frank's daughter, Nancy, was asked, What would your father want people to remember about his civil rights work? She smiled. He'd probably say, I didn't do anything special. I just didn't sing for racists. That was Frank. He didn't make a big deal out of doing the right thing. He just did it. Frank Sinatra refused to perform at a segregated venue. They threatened to sue. He walked anyway. And in walking away, he helped break down barriers. Not with speeches, not with marches, but with refusal. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say no and mean it.